Hi ho ho, and welcome to the third ever Boy Time feature. This time on Baldur's Gate 3. As always, I'm joined by Babby.
Mm.
Mm. Yes, it's been a minute since we've done a feature. You have been playing this game for a hot minute, and
Hmm.
you finally finished it. So, I guess we'll start off with that. Now that you have completed the game, what do you think? Just initial impressions.
Um, it took a while for me to get in,
Mm.
but once I was in, it was like, oh my God, this game never ends. And then when it finally ended, I'm like, I kind of want a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, I think I have 107 hours in the game right now.
Holy
I did
moly.
a solo playthrough and we're also doing a multiplayer playthrough.
Yes.
But I feel like I would say 70, 60 or 70 of those hours were like one solo playthrough, which is kind of insane.
Yes. It is a huge game. Um, but yeah, it is kind of interesting in that it is like, well, I kind of want more. Which I guess is
But
maybe
there's so much content, so it's not
it's,
even a bad thing.
it's not. And it does encourage, multiple playthroughs.
Mhm.
Which is good. Like I would say, at the very least, I think minimum, I would say most people should at least do two, and that second one being the Dark Urge playthrough.
Mm.
Because I guess my own experience, I should pull up how many hours I have. It's gonna be embarrassing. 310 hours in Baldur's Gate 3. Um, yeah, like you, took me a very long time to get into it. I don't think I really got into it until we started our multiplayer playthrough that we started in January. And then I was like, I want to play this. I should do it. And then I did, and I got hooked. Um, I did a regular playthrough, and then I did one on Tactician, and that was my Dark Urge playthrough. And then I beat Honor Mode. So I don't know if everybody wants to clap or something, or
Put it on
do
your job resume.
put it on my resume. But yeah, I did honor mode. Um, so I've played this game. I've pretty much mastered it, and that like it took me forever to beat honor mode. I don't really recommend anyone do it, but I do think that the Dark Urge and really all the origin characters bring something unique to the playthrough. But Dark Urge especially is interesting because it's almost like you're playing the like dark side variant of the game. Um, all of the like, not all, but like a lot of the like narrator stuff is like changed and twisted. Um,
Mhm.
there's a whole other angle to the story that I'm not going to spoil because I think that as I said, I think
That's what I'm
everyone
gonna
should
do
do it.
next.
Yeah, it is, and it's a lot of fun just to be evil, which is something that we found out on our multiplayer run, is that we are chaotic evil, I think.
Yeah.
We have one ally, and we pretty much just did that so that we would have one ally in the final fight. Um, and I don't know what's going to happen from now until the final fight, but it will be entertaining, I suppose.
I
But
feel like there's no way we're beating that playthrough.
I think we'll be able to do it.
Okay.
We've pulled enough crazy stuff out where like
That's true.
we
We are
kill.
getting kind of OP a little bit.
Yeah, we I I don't want this to just kind of boil down to like a remember this, but like we did, in Act Two. There's the like shadow curse thing, and so we accidentally killed all of the Harpers, all of your allies that would be helping you at the end of Act Two, and we raided Moonrise Towers all by ourselves and succeeded,
True.
albeit barely.
Yeah,
And
it was close
it
a
was
couple of
it
times.
was very close. And I think we have you to thank for that, as you were the last one alive and you brought
True.
us all back. I think we
Yeah,
ended
my
the fight
mic
with all of
died.
us.
I couldn't hear anybody. My computer was freaking out, and I had to somehow do that.
It was a moment that will go down in the history books, I think. But
I would say
maybe that's something to bring up, and that
that's what
like,
this game does, though.
yeah, it's one of those special games that can like somehow completely encapsulate the feeling of playing tabletop D&D in a video game, which I would think would be impossible, but it somehow does it. Like those are definitely moments that would happen in a D&D session
Hmm.
where everybody's down and it's all down to one guy and then miraculously something happens and that's just like those memories will live on forever and all of the people involved. And so like it's kind of amazing that the game can capture that feeling. Um but yeah, I think
I feel like if you want to get into D&D, play this game first and then play D&D
yeah, I think that'll
because
help.
it is 1-to-1 and it is
Mhm.
like I think I figured out a lot more about D&D playing this game just because I like having the visuals in front of me and the things
Yes.
telling me what I can do.
Yeah, and I think it does help too in that like the system is a computer, whereas
Hmm.
in D&D the system is your DM, and sometimes they
Hmm.
might forget. A rule might slip,
Exactly.
and that doesn't really happen in a video game.
These battles may be really long in game, but like in a tabletop session, they take 3 times longer.
Yeah, because your DM has to do a lot of math
Yes.
and keeping track of health and everything. Gotta have a whole notebook next to you so that you can have all that ready. Um, Yeah, which is maybe yeah, this is definitely more accessible than tabletop D&D. But, if you're interested, I think that this is a good starting place. Obviously, if you're already into D&D, I think this is a pretty obvious pick for like,
Hmm.
well, why aren't you playing this game? Because it is the exact rules of D&D 5e. If you didn't know that, that's the case. Um, which is interesting. That Wizards of the Coast was like, yeah, okay, Larian, do it. But I guess they were a pretty respected RPG studio before. They made the Divinity games, which I couldn't really get into, but people do praise those as being really, really good. But I'm not really into RPGs, which is funny because the two features that
Me
we've
neither.
done have been on RPGs. Um, but I do think the RPGs are interesting to talk about. Um,
I haven't played RPGs of this type where it is more like click and point
yeah.
and not like physically using your controller or mouse to like do actions. Like you're just
Yes.
clicking buttons. I usually don't play those games and I feel like they're usually like very inaccessible to me, but I
Yep.
love Disco Elysium and this game.
Mm-hmm. Although it's a Disco Elysium is its own beast. I don't even know what
Yeah.
genre Disco Elysium falls into. This is a
Good
CRPG.
game genre.
It's a good
Yeah.
game. Um, no, this is a. I think you're used to action adventure RPGs, your
Yes.
Bethesda games,
Fallout,
Fallout.
Cyberpunk,
Yeah,
those are the ones I usually gravitate towards.
sure. They're more accessible in that they
Yes.
do include some like real time combat,
Yep.
whereas CRPGs most of the time are turn based, or at the very least are like
I
RTSs
guess
almost.
Pokemon was the only one that like I was really into where it was like kind of turn-based combat.
That's true. That's true. But I'm with you. I hardly ever play these. I've tried to play the original Baldur's Gate. There was an enhanced version that came out in 2011. Um, but the game itself came out, I think, in the early 90s. An old PC game. And I tried, couldn't get into it. Uh, Mainly because I'm unfamiliar with D&D 2e, and it's even clunky for I mean even that is 13 years old, the enhanced edition, so it still doesn't really run on modern systems. It runs on like Windows 7. um, so yeah, it's a little tough, and I've also tried to play the original Fallout. Still
Yeah.
doesn't I can't get into it. I'm sorry. I'm just spoiled with modern RPG gaming, I guess.
I feel like Fallout 2 is playable, but the original is like too far gone.
Which is unfortunate because I love. There's this YouTube channel called Ghost Charm. I don't know if I have shouted him out on the regular podcast. I should have if I haven't, but he does really great, um, like 30 to 40 minute, like, I don't know if video essay is the right word, but it's like this, like, he has a villain PDS series, a hero PDS series, where it's all like little entries where he covers the entire history of one character. And oftentimes they are RPG characters because those are the characters that he likes. So I've seen his videos on like the original Fallout and Saravok, who's in Baldur's Gate 3, which is why I want to get into them, but I haven't. Except for, I don't know why Baldur's Gate 3 really grabbed me the way it did. Because I got
Good
it at,
game.
it is a good game, but I got it at launch and I didn't get into it until January, which was like 5 months after the fact. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was Grant. Grant tends to get me into these things. Um,
I can see it.
yeah. But I guess we can talk a little bit more now that we've established our relationship with RPGs. With like the setting, maybe like maybe go act by act and like kind
Yeah.
of go through what we do and don't like about each act. Maybe starting with Act One. You go on a nautiloid, then you escape, and then you're on the Sword Coast. Um, and I think, in my humble opinion, I think that Act One is the best. I don't know how
Okay.
you feel about this. Um,
I think it was the hardest for me to get into, honestly. Mostly because I didn't know what was going on. I think our multiplayer playthrough helped me figure out, like, oh, okay.
yeah, that's true. I think it is almost like overwhelming because of
Yeah.
how open Act One is. Whereas I feel like Act Two is pretty linear in that,
Mm.
like, it is okay, you walk out and you're either greeted by goblins or harpers, and they're like, go here. And so it's like, oh, okay, I will go there. And it's more kind of hand holdy, Act Two is, where it's like, go to Moonrise Towers, and then you go to the graveyard, except you didn't do that. Um, but
Nope, we'll get into that.
we'll get into it.
Me
And
and
then,
Paul made the same mistake.
yeah, I don't understand how you both did that.
I don't know.
And then Act Three is kind of similar, where the beginning of Act Three funnels you into the castle, and then you go into the city, and the city kind of opens it up once you get into the lower city.
Mm.
But Act One is like kind of overwhelming because it's like find the goblin camp, and immediately you're greeted with like four forks in the road where you can go in different directions, and it's like, where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Um, which can be a little bit intimidating. But I think the variety of all of the different things going on in Act One, I really like. I mean, you have the Druid Grove, and then you have the Spooky Swamp, and then you have kind of like
Ooh.
a mountainous zone with all of the gnolls and hyenas. Um, then you have the little Githyankies and the giant dragon, and then the Goblin Camp. It's like there's a lot of different stuff going on that I think the other acts kind of are a little one note to me. It's all Shadow Curse or it's all city stuff. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I appreciate the variety in Act One a little bit more, and maybe it's the one that I like the most because I played it the most. I've failed many an honor mode run in Act One, so I know Act One like the back of my hand. But what do you think? What do you think of Act
I think it's been so long since I've been in Act One, but now that you're remember like saying everything that was in it, yeah, I enjoy Act One quite a bit. Um, I think once I got my bearings, I was having a lot of fun.
One?
Uh, I think my my first solo playthrough, I started as a bard because I didn't know what I was doing, and then I found out that being a bard in a solo playthrough was really boring. Um,
If you don't know
so I
what you're
switched
doing,
that
yeah.
eventually, especially if I don't know what I'm doing, because I
Yeah.
was not about to be like go hardcore in a bard build. So I'm like, I just want to like enjoy the game and have not too hard of a time in the solo, like my first playthrough. So
Sure.
I just went paladin and pretty
Yeah.
much destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Um, but I think just getting into Act One, it was like, okay, I don't really like any of the companions yet.
Yeah.
There's like I entered like the church or ruins like immediately, and that was like a harder area
Mm,
to go to first. Um, and I just didn't really know what was going on yet. Um,
sure.
but eventually it definitely opens up and I'm like, whoa, there's so much to do. Um, and this whole like moonrise towers thing, and that's just like your entire narrative for like the first 40 hours of the game.
Yeah.
It's very elusive, even more elusive than Baldur's Gate, that is also mentioned, but you don't reach it until about 70 hours into your playthrough. um,
That's true. That is
but
true.
I did enjoy it a lot. I really enjoy fantasy when it comes down to like being witty and funny and disturbing and scary and weird and
Mm,
corny and cheesy, like all in the same at
yeah.
the same time. And that's what this game does really well. So it's really easy to kind of like get into it after you get over those like hurdles in the beginning of being on a squid spaceship and then
Right.
falling out of the sky onto a beach and being like, what do I do?
Okay, where to now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It does strike that interesting tone that I think like Fallout kind of has, where
exactly.
like it's very tongue in cheek, but
Hmm.
if like you're paying attention, it kind of talks on pretty serious stuff.
Yes.
Especially as you get to really learn all of the your companions' backstories. Like, I know everybody simps over Asterion. He's maybe my least favorite, but his whole story is like trauma and abuse and getting over it. And like
Hmm.
on his surface, he's kind of an evil guy, but once you get to know him, he's like, oh, this kind of all makes sense why he's like this. And that's kind of the case with all of them,
Yep.
which is very interesting. Um,
It's weird because I hated Asterion for like the first 30 hours, and I'm like, actually, he's pretty sick.
yeah,
And he's really good as a character. Like, I mean, having a rogue in your party is always great
yes,
if you know how to use it well. I took
absolutely.
so much, like, full advantage of him in my playthrough.
Yeah, I think my first party comp was Asterion, Shadowheart, and I think it flipped between Karlach and Will.
I
Karlach
did the
is my
same thing.
favorite.
Yeah, I
Uh,
did the same thing.
I think that's just kind of standard. You want a healer, you want a rogue. Yeah,
Exactly.
Karlach comes in and smacks things, and then whatever you
Yep.
are can kind of
Tanky.
do whatever. You can kind of, I don't know. Doesn't really matter your choice because all of the big pillars have been hit. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that kind of makes sense. Um, yeah, yeah. But I guess we can talk a little bit about the characters. Kind of gotten into it a little bit. But like, who's your least favorite? Who's your favorite companion?
So I don't care about Gale.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I care about Will in Act 3 because his story opens interesting things, but I don't really care about him as a character.
Yeah.
But I like the areas he takes you if you do like indulge in it a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like Lae'zel is like I tried and I just couldn't get a lot of interest out of it.
Yeah.
There's like because usually the characters like get a lot better as you talk to them more and everything.
Mhm.
Lae'zel kind of seemed like a flat line, and then it was like you either fully commit to like a full Lae'zel like backstory playthrough and
Yeah.
like have to make everybody mad, or you just drop her completely. um,
Yeah,
but
that's
I think
true.
Karlach's one of my favorites.
She is my
That's
favorite.
just like classic.
Hmm.
Asterion was actually a lot of fun. I did not expect Asterion to like be one of my favorites, but I get the hype.
Yeah.
I think his backstory, his voice actor is really great. His lines are really great.
Yeah.
Um, his actual like skills as a rogue are really fun. I'm really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Plus, it's kind of cheating once you got that cat armor and I had like
Oh.
I had the blessed or something. No, not
Mhm.
blessed. It's like steeped in grace or something.
Oh,
Whatever that
yeah.
buff is. So I could open pretty much any door in the game in Act Three, which was great. um, Shadowheart was pretty good. It was kind of middle of the road. I liked her backstory and like the whole Shar Temple. That
Yeah.
was really fun. Um, so she's kind of middle of the road, but I think Asterion and Karlach were my favorites.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I think my honor mode run that I ended up finishing was the one that I romanced Karlach. Um, and I think that that one was my favorite romance that I've done. I think I
Mhm.
did Shadowheart in the first one and then Minthara for my Dark Urge because that just made sense. And then
I was sad that I couldn't like fully do the Karlach storyline, so I have to do another playthrough and do that.
yeah, that's the thing is that like her whole storyline is ultimately tragic. And
Yeah.
maybe it's tragic in two different ways
Hmm.
because well, firstly, on the surface in the actual game, it's tragic in that like it seems that like when you are romancing her and like you are like focusing on her throughout your entire playthrough, you're kind of like restoring the life that like a whole life of trauma in the hell being tortured and forced to murder people, and it's like those cracks are starting to show and like the light is starting to come in, and then she dies in the end or she's taken
Hmm.
to hell. And it's just like, oh, I guess spoilers. I probably should have said that.
Yeah, I was gonna get into what happened in my playthrough later, but yeah.
Sorry. Sorry. But I think it's kind of known that like that's the main thing with
Yeah.
Karlach is that her story kind of ends abruptly, and that's because there was a plan for a DLC where you would go into the Hells and rescue Karlach and bring her back. So like the
Mm.
perfect kind of end for her story is like, finally someone cares about her enough to go in and save her, and that was ultimately canceled. I think at this point it's been debunked that this was like a Wizards of the Coast Hasbro decision, and it's just like Larian's like CEO or president or whatever was just like, yeah, we just don't want to be stuck making this, and we want to make a new game, and we don't want to have it be Baldur's Gate 4. We don't want it to be a DLC. We want it to be its own thing, which I think is kind of admirable in a way,
Mhm.
because a lot of studios get stuck making the same game over and over and over again, whereas Larian is kind of deliberately wanting to switch it up. I do wish that they did that
Good
DLC
move.
though. That's really the only thing. I'm not
Yeah.
upset that they aren't making Baldur's Gate 4. Um, I mean, I would have liked them to make Baldur's Gate 4 because Baldur's Gate 3 is great, but I respect the decision and I probably will play whatever they make next. But yeah, it does kind of suck for Karlach because of that. Um, but yeah, I think my other, I don't know, who do I like? Karlach is the easy pick,
Mhm.
but yeah, I also don't care about Gale. I haven't romanced him, but like I've had him in
I
my
know people
party
like
before.
Gale, but it's just like I don't care.
Maybe he gets more interesting when
He
you
might.
romance him, but because I think really that's the only way to really know what's going
Yeah.
on in all of their lives. That's really how to get the most out of them. Um, but yeah, just not that interesting. I agree. Will is interesting really only in the end because he
Mhm.
has these like choices to make between getting out of the contract with the devil and saving his dad, who's been estranged from. So there's like moral questions to get into with Will that make him interesting in the last act, but I don't know. He seems fine throughout the rest of it. Um, but yeah, I think I like Lae'zel. I like where she goes. Um, it's kind of an interesting like thing. Her premise is like a religious fanatic who is like thrown into a strange and foreign land with nothing to cling on to. Like all of her cultural landmarks are gone. She has nothing to relate to any of these people with. So of course she clings to her faith and her culture. And it's like, well, obviously we need to do this. Everything that you guys are suggesting is dumb because in my view, the only right thing to do is the only thing I know. And so she can come off as like brash and like rude, but like it's totally in her character. And if you do like the Orpheus route and with her in the party, it kind of becomes interesting where she kind of learns to like accept criticism or accept alternate views and kind of like poke cracks and not like religious fanaticism that is kind of fun and satisfying. So yeah,
I
I
do
don't.
this Orpheus thing next. Actually, we're gonna do that in multiplayer one, so
Yes, we are.
we'll do the Orpheus.
But we killed Lazel, so.
Correct. She's been dead since Act One. I
And her
think we
body
killed
was
her on like
following
our
us
third
around.
play.
Yeah.
I don't even know
Uh,
what happened. I feel like I
um,
had like my first cutscene with her, and we just killed her immediately.
I think if I remember right, it's an early cut scene where she tries to kill you for
Uh
like
huh.
being sick. Like you start like sweating or something, you sit down and she's like, I'll make it fast. I'm gonna kill everybody and then kill myself. Am I allowed to say that? um,
Yeah.
okay, that's what she says. And I think what happened was we were just like, oh, no, we're just gonna kill you. So we murdered her. And throughout all of Act One, her dead body followed us to every camp we went to. It was kind of funny that
It
her dead
was
body was
fantastic.
there. But yeah, our playthrough, we only have two companions, and that is Asterion and Minthara. Everyone else is dead. Dead or left, I guess. Um, and right now Minthara is kidnapped, so actually we just have
Yeah, we
Asterion.
got Asterion and that little girl that won't leave us alone.
Yeah, I keep. Well, I'm not gonna say what I do because I don't. I don't want to get that clipped. But uh, yeah, I think that those are like my favorite characters and my least favorite. I think that's kind of an unpopular opinion to say that Lae'zel is one of my favorites and Asterion is one of my least favorites, but I don't know. That's just me.
To each their own.
To each their own. But yeah, we talked about Act 1 and the characters. Talk about Act 2 now. We've gone, well, I was going to say we've gone to the Underdark. That's not necessarily true. You either go to the Underdark or you go through the Crash, and then you make it. Well, you don't
Or
even have
both.
to go through the Crash. You can
Oh, you
just
don't?
take a left turn and go down the mountain pass.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
suppose.
yeah, you're not going through the Crash. You actually have to go back the way you came to come
Yeah.
to the Shadowlands. So yeah, you make it to the Shadowlands, and I think this is gonna shock a lot of people. I think Act 2 is my least favorite.
I
Just
agree.
because the Shadow Curse is annoying. I don't really have any other reason. It's annoying, and I think there's like all of the characters in Act 2, the NPCs, not the companions, but the NPCs, there is not a great variety. Whereas in Act 1, you can run into like goblins and a hag, and it's like everybody in the Shadow Curse land is essentially a zombie, and there's weird zombies like all of the Thorm family that you can murder, um, but like you're not having extended storylines with the gold Thorm lady or the bartender guy. It's interesting settings, but it's just like, oh, okay, they're kind of one and dones. Whereas there's a lot more interesting story arcs going on in Act One, for me. But what do you think about Act Two?
I agree. I felt like Act Two was not that long.
No,
I felt like there's like three major parts of Act Two, and the rest is kind of like you can do it, but you don't have to. And it's
true.
like it doesn't. enable you to explore like Act One. Like Act One in my solo playthrough, I did pretty much everything you could possibly do.
Yeah.
Like I went to the Underdark and I did the Crash and I did all of it.
Mm,
Um, but like with the Shadow Curse, it was really annoying to try to explore.
sure.
It made it a lot harder to be like, oh, I'm gonna try to like see everything. Um, but yeah, I think all the like main events of Act Two are really nice and
Yeah.
cool. But I think the pacing of it was a lot different than Act One, and it felt really weird.
Yeah.
Um, because it felt like Moonrise Towers was this like gigantic thing, and it's like the end of Act Two, which is what I thought, which
Yeah.
it kind of is.
Yeah, it is.
Um, but the way I don't know, it didn't have the best like. It didn't feel like the payoff was. I don't know. It didn't feel like Act One, where I'm like, I did everything, and now I'm
Yeah.
ready to move on. It was more
That's
like
true.
I kind of went through a shadowy forest, and there's probably a lot more to explore in there, but I'm too annoyed to go back and do it.
Right.
So I'm just gonna do the big things.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of like visual variety, whereas in Act
No.
1 there is a lot. And it feels fun to explore and see the new environments, whereas
Hmm.
it's like it's a shadow cursed forest or it's a shadow cursed town or Moonrise Towers or the Shar Temple. So there's like three things to do. Three different settings. And it's like, oh, okay. That's fine. But I think special props need to be made for J.K. Simmons. Ketherick Thorm is awesome. I I think he's the best antagonist. He's like maybe it's because it's J.K. Simmons, but man, that voice is awesome. And I think his armor's super cool. The little hands on the shoulders. And I think his backstory is kind of interesting, whereas Orin's and Gortash's aren't really to me. And maybe it's because they aren't really fleshed out. I know that's kind of controversial because Act 3, I don't think it was necessarily rushed, but you can definitely tell that that is like there was so much they wanted to fit into Act 3 that some aspects of it aren't as fully fleshed out as some of the earlier acts. Um, Whereas like Ketherick, if you like do deep dives, and I know we read the note from his wife just so that he would kill himself in the Act Two fight. But
That
if
was
you
very
read it,
cool.
the note, it's like kind of sad um, that he was just like this guy. He was like this well-respected general that like was like I think a religious leader for Saloon, which is like the good moon god in D&D. And like it's just because his daughter died tragically that he became this like avatar for the undead god Miracle. And it's just kind of sad to see him like tortured and twisted and then read books in Moonrise Towers that it's like his wife being like, "Hey, please don't do this." And like he kept it. And it's just like, "Oh, that's so sad." It's like the one little glimmer of light is there and it's very tragic. Whereas like Gortash, I don't feel anything about murdering Gortash and I do it every single time even though it's not required. Same with Orin. She's just crazy lady. It's like okay, but I don't know. That's just my
I think
opinion.
it's a good dynamic to have that one kind of like shaky member of the big three, and then the other two are just like pure funny evil.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know, but I think
I think the
that's
Shard Temple was my favorite part of Act Two, though.
it's pretty sick. When I found
Yeah,
out that there was trials in my first playthrough, I'm like,
I know.
this
I
is
was like, oh my
awesome.
god.
I can't wait to solve some puzzles. There isn't really a puzzle.
No, they were
No.
fun though.
Yeah. Man, the one that you can't see where you're going, that one always trips me up.
Hmm.
And then when we did our multiplayer playthrough, our friend Grant was just like, "Oh, just go to this corner and then press the very edge of the platform that has the orb on it, and your character just does it for you." Like, well, okay. I wish I would have known this because I think I died twice in my well, not died, but like my character died twice in my honor mode playthrough because I couldn't do it right.
Oof.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. we'll come to know how precious those scrolls of revivification are in our multiplayer honor mode run when we
Yeah,
finish our tactician run.
because we'll definitely go far in that.
I We'll see. We'll
We
see.
definitely don't die once per session.
I think we'll be able to do it.
Okay.
Um, but I'm definitely going to be more annoying, and that like, oh,
Oh,
we need to
absolutely.
do this. Like,
Yeah.
like these are the things that we should do 100%. These are the things that we should not do.
Good luck.
Because there's a lot of those. In Act 3, you just kill Orin and then go on to the final fight. There's like nothing else to do in Act 3 once you hit max level because it's
Interesting.
too dangerous. Um,
I could see that.
if it isn't like you need to do this, like I didn't fight the dragon. I've never killed Raphael. It's just like there's a lot of stuff that's like at any moment one of these guys could one shot my entire party and wipe out like 30 hours of playtime. And I'm not going to risk it. So we'll see what happens with that. But I guess speaking of Act 3, we can move on to Act 3.
Oh,
Um, I don't think that either of us have done all that Act 3 has to offer. I just admitted that I've never killed Raphael.
I
Um,
did do that.
well, okay. I'm glad because I think we're going to do it in our multiplayer playthrough. And I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. I want to because he has some things I need for my character.
All right. We'll do that. And my favorite thing to do in Act 3 is the prison, the
Yeah.
underwater prison. Um,
Yes, that was really cool.
I loved when I saw that you only have 5 turns. I'm like, there's no
Time
way.
based. Yeah.
But it's one of those where it's like, once you master it, it feels so good. Um, Plus, here's a little tip for everybody that is having issues freeing everybody from the underwater prison, because it's very hard. Um, if you send one of your guys to free the oh whatever the tentacle man, I forget what his name is, the guy from the Underdark that's for some reason in the
Oh yeah,
underwater
that guy.
prison. He Once you rescue him, he has an ability to teleport himself and the person who rescues him back to the
Oh,
escape pod. So I was like, oh my, I'm not gonna be able to do it. We were like right at the end, right at the ladder, but like we just didn't have enough movement. And then I was like, wait, he has this ability this entire time, and I've been so stressed out, like retrying and retrying to like get like the fly mechanic to like do it perfectly so we'd have enough movement. And I'm like, okay, that's not even needed. Just teleport. So don't make the same mistake I did and free the that guy. He doesn't really do much. I don't remember if he shows up as an ally at the end. He might, but I don't remember. But what do you think of Act 3?
it's probably my favorite actually.
Okay.
Um, Mostly because you're at a character, your character is at a level like when just like even when you start where you're able to fully flesh out your build and like
Yeah.
have the potential to do all the cool stuff that you've been wanting to do. Um, so I always like that. That's my favorite part of these kind of like RPGs is when you're in like this 75% done stage and your character is like really good and you get to have a
Yeah.
lot of fun in combat. Um, but I think just the variety of stuff to do in Act 3 was great. Like I got into Act 3 thinking that like okay, we have one simple goal here. How long can this act really be? And then I probably spent the most time in Act 3 because of there's so much stuff to do.
There is.
Um, the freaking vampire fight with Asterion was
Mm,
crazy.
yeah.
That was insanely difficult. I don't know if we're gonna do that in our multiplayer run because it is so hard. Um,
Maybe.
but I mean, we could. I did Raphael. That was really fun.
Yes.
That's also a really hard fight to do. Um, but when you fight him, he has his own theme music and he sings in his own song while you're fighting him, which is really funny.
Yes, I've heard that song. because everyone has it, and they're like Baldur's Gate 3 tips and tricks for honor mode. It's like that's the
Of course.
background music. So
Yeah.
I know that that's like the gimmick, but I've never done it. So
It's a really fun fight. It's one of the more satisfying fights, I would say.
I'm sure it
Um,
is.
Plus, you get Hope as a companion, which is pretty cool uh, for that
Oh,
section. Um, so I enjoyed that a lot. I think the House of Hope and everything is like one of the best areas in the game. I think that was like really cool
sure.
design. Um, the Orin fight was cool. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's a requirement. That was cool.
Yes.
I think I think I became like a ballist, and then I died, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that again. um, I did kill that stupid elephant though, so uh, freaking monocle elephant landlord
The
guy.
little detective.
Uh, yeah, that guy. Um, what else was in Act Three? We had the wizard fight.
There's a
Um,
wizard fight. Did you go
Dame
through
Aelin.
the catacombs in the wizard realm?
I don't think so. No.
We'll have to do that in the multiplayer zone. That one's fun.
Interesting.
I'll show you guys how to do it. I don't know if
Yeah,
Grant probably has. Grant's played
I
this
hated
game like five
I
times.
hated the wizard, so
Yeah, I
I
don't
murked
like the
him
wizard.
pretty quickly. Um, Dame Aelin, the weirdest name
There's the
for a character.
prison.
There's the prison. The
I
prison
like
is
the prison.
awesome.
No,
I
not
loved the prison.
the prison. The foundry. I already
Oh
talked
yes,
about the prison.
the steel watch.
Yes, that's kind of
Uh,
interesting.
that was cool. Yeah, that was a little confusing for a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think I messed up somewhere and I killed everybody before I had the chance to like talk to anybody. So I didn't figure out how to blow up the thing. So I had to
Oh.
like look it up because you had to like grab a piece of paper from somebody and read it, and then that would activate it.
Oh.
Um,
Did the
it was
blind
a little
gnome die?
confusing. Yeah.
Oh,
So I had to
he
like
usually
pick up
does.
the thing off of his body. uh,
Oh, okay.
so I was like stuck for like 20 minutes. Like, what am I doing?
That
Um,
makes sense.
that was a lot of fun too. Um, the dragon was really
The
fun. I
dragon's
like those
sick.
trials a lot. I hated
Yeah.
the stupid chess one because I don't know how to play chess, so
Oh,
I just got Will to electrocute the king,
you can
and
do
that
that.
worked.
It does.
So,
That's kind of awesome. That it's like they
yeah,
know that not everybody knows how to play chess,
I'm like,
so
I
they're
may
just
be playing a game that like if anybody walks in, they're gonna be like, "What on earth are you doing, rocket science?" And I'm like, I can't play chess, so
yeah. That's my favorite one because I like playing chess. So I'm like, oh, that's nice, and it's random every time. It's a different puzzle, so
true.
it's nice.
Yeah, but the weapons and stuff you get from that fight are crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so my paladin was like unbeatable by the end of the game. The best sword in the game and the strength bow that multiplied my damage by my like strength multiplier, which was like 23.
Yeah.
It was a little OP. The Gortash fight was decent. It I definitely see why you don't have to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the best fight in the world, but
No, and you don't really get much from him.
no.
Like
Yeah,
his clothes pretty much just give you like advantage on like intimidation and I think deception. But at
I
this
think so, yeah.
point, you probably have someone who's really, really good at that at level 12.
Hmm.
So you don't really need it.
Yep.
So
It
yeah,
was just to do it. I
yeah,
like doing like as much as I could in that playthrough. I
sure,
mean, I'm gonna have to do another one and use different people and do Dark Urge probably.
sure.
But I mean, I like all the clothes shops and doing all
Yeah.
that. The NPCs were really fun. There's like small little storylines. The hag comes back, which is really cool.
Yes, the
Um,
hag does come back.
yeah, it was. I think Act Three is just like booming with like life and character. That
Yeah.
the game was like kind of uh, getting into an Act One. It was like
Mm,
lost a little bit in Act Two. Act Two was like lock in main story darkness, and then you get to Act Three, and you're like in this colorful city, and there's like
yeah.
things to do on every block.
Oh,
Um,
there's a lot to do.
but yeah, I think my only complaint is like you get all of these great character arcs in Act Three, but there's not really a lot in Act One or Two. You can only go so far with your characters, and then it feels like once you hit Act Three, everything is happening all the time.
True.
And I feel like it should be spaced out like a little bit more because I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like every single time I go to camp, there's like 4 people to talk to and 4 new things to do and all these decisions to make.
That's true. I think in the beginning they're trying to ease you into the gameplay side of things,
Hmm.
whereas at the end you've probably got it down. You're level 12. You then they're like, okay, now we start throwing dialogue and stuff.
Yep.
Give them something to keep coming back for, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, I agree. It does kind of like feel like, oh, now there's everything, and
Yeah.
for me, as someone with absolutely no patience, I don't want to listen to anyone tell me anything. It's just like,
That's
ah,
why I don't like Will. I feel like Will is like a library and
yeah, that's
it's
true.
just
Will and
hard.
Gale. Gale's like so
Yeah.
flowery, and it's like, I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you this tale. Like, shut
I'm
up.
like, I don't care. I will say my Carlac ending was interesting though.
Oh yeah.
I turned her into a mind flayer.
Oh yes, I did that on my first playthrough too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I think is the best ending when you're not like fully romancing Carlac, I think.
I think it is. Yeah, it's the only one that she lives in the end.
Yeah. And she
So
seems content. So I was satisfied with my decision.
yeah, I
Because
think it's a good one.
I went half Illithid like immediately. I'm like, this is OP.
Yeah,
But I didn't want to go full Illithid on my main character. But
sure.
I felt like that was a good um, substitute. But
Yeah.
yeah, Act 3 was a lot of fun. I think it definitely pays off once you get to the city that they talk about for
Mhm.
80 hours of the game.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those like perfect build-ups where it's like you hear it
Hmm.
mentioned. Everybody's talking about Baldur's Gate throughout the entire game. And, it's a long game and a lot of people are talking. And then you finally get there. And it does kind of feel like it's satisfying to like have all this stuff to do in this place that you've been building up for, 25 hours or whatever. Um, so, yeah, really, really well done. Did you do the zombie thing?
I think I did.
I like that one. That
Yeah.
one's fun. With Mystic Carrion.
Mm.
Yes, that one was fun to like figure out what to do, and there was a lot of twists
Hmm.
in that one, which I won't spoil, even though I've spoiled everything else on accident. Um,
It's a big game. It's kind of hard not to like just talk about it.
yeah, and I think features are more for like we're gonna get into the nitty gritty, gonna go through
Yeah,
everything. We
exactly.
assume that everybody
This
listening
ain't a
has played.
podcast topic. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Podcast topics are more like recommendations.
Yes.
Like, you still want to push people to experience these things. For a feature, you've probably already played it or watched it or whatever. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this game? I guess we could talk about the endings, the final fight. I think that the final fight is really fun. I don't know if that is
Yeah.
an unpopular opinion.
It's very different than any other fight in the game. I think they did
Yeah.
that really well. It's really annoying, but in a way that feels satisfying when you finally do finish it.
Yes.
I am dreading it in our multiplayer playthrough, but I think it's like when we finally pull it off, it makes it worth it.
I think we'll be able to do it. I am
I
optimistic.
think so. Once I get some certain things for my monk, I'm gonna be pretty much set
Yeah.
for anything. So
Yeah, we'll have to do that for sure. We'll probably have to do like everything in Act 3 to get all of the like right
yeah,
gear for all of us to do it.
yeah. Because I kind of know
Because
what I need already now that I've played through the game once. I'm like every time I found something, I'm like, ooh, that go great on my monk and my other playthrough.
right. Yeah, there's so much stuff for monks. I feel like that's like one of the
Which is
classes
good.
that gets the most love in terms of
Yes.
gear. Which I
As a
think,
monk lover, I'm so glad.
yeah, I think monks were the last class added to the game. Because there were like a
Interesting.
bunch of betas and stuff that I think were pretty
Oh yeah.
open. Maybe it was in early access. I don't remember. Um, but yeah, I think Monk was the last one, and Karlak was the last one added or something. I don't I don't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at all this, but Yeah, I do love the final fight after you give a big speech or don't say anything. Um, and then uh, it's really satisfying when like you've saved everybody and you've spent all of Act 3 recruiting everybody you possibly can to
Hmm.
lead them all into a final fight is awesome. It feels like, and I'm not going to throw this around lightly. It feels like a really fun Lord of the Rings battle, like Battle
Hmm.
for Helm's Deep or something, where like it's like edge of your seat strategy, which is like so rare to find. Um, I love it. I love that very much. Except, and this will make everybody cry. The owl bear cub grows up, and you can use them as an ally in the end. They're armored, and you can fight with them. Mine, for some reason, I summoned them in the first fight, and they were awesome. A big old owl bear on my team. And then I brought them into the final fight on top of the tower where, like, there's a dragon. And for some reason, it was bugged. And I summoned the owl bear, and it was an owl bear cub, and it had 3 hit points. And it
No.
died immediately. And I was so sad. I know my favorite little guy for some reason reverted. He had Benjamin Button disorder or something, and
That's
he
awesome.
and the dragon like targeted him with like the nuke, and I'm like, why are you doing this? It's the saddest thing. But yeah, yeah. And then once you fight the brain, I think the brain can be a little confusing. You have to basically nuke it all at
Yeah.
once. So you have to save a lot of your best stuff for that, um, which is hard when there's a dragon
Hmm.
and a bunch of mind flayers that do a bunch
And
of
you can't
damage.
walk because there are tentacles everywhere.
Yeah, it's the worst. That one I'm worried about. It's the one before with our multiplayer. I'm like, that's gonna be fine. I think we'll be able to pull that off. Just whether or
Yeah.
not we'll be able to kill the dragon and all of the copied versions of ourselves and the mind flayers. Well, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Uh, we'll have to really min max it a little bit since we've shot ourselves in the foot and killed everybody.
Every session we do that.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's funny. At the time, it's funny.
It's yes.
So it's worth it.
We
Um,
haven't regretted it yet.
no, no, we won't. No, not yet. Uh, we'll report back if we do end up regretting it. I don't know. We won't make another feature,
No.
but we might talk about it on the podcast proper once we finish. Um, but yeah, I guess that's our review of Baldur's Gate 3, unless you have something else you want to talk about.
No, I don't think so. I
Oh,
think it's a fantastic game.
yes.
I, I think it is a like a shining light that a AAA studio
Mm,
made an amazing game that has a lot of content,
yep.
not a lot of bugs, and it was a finished product on launch.
Yeah.
But that does not happen.
No microtransactions.
No microtransactions,
Nothing.
no DLC,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. It's impressive. And it was like it made such waves when it came out that
Hmm.
like every other major studio was releasing stuff being like, this is not the norm. This should not be what you are anticipating from here on out, which, you know, is a sign that it's a really good game that
Yep,
like gives you a lot of bang for your buck. It's one of those games that I recommend buying at full price. Um,
absolutely.
I think,
I mean, the amount of hours you get out of this is
yeah,
worth it
absolutely. And you want to give Larian what they're due. They're they're one of the
for sure.
few AAA studios that is consistently putting out great stuff,
It felt
and
like love and care of a small dev team, but it's a AAA
it
studio.
really
That's
did.
crazy.
It's kind of nuts. So yeah, give them their flowers. They're very very good. And stay tuned in 5 years when we get whatever Larian is cooking up right now. Because Divinity 2 came out in 2017 and Baldur's Gate 3 came out in 2023. So, well, I guess that's a 6 year gap, but worth it. Worth the wait. So, bye.